there was a lot of envy happening. There was a lot of hate happening. And I mean, for a kid, that's a pretty messed up environment to grow up in. Hey, what's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to my channel, Elevate with Felisha. And today we have a very personal video talking about my past and just how I grew up as a child. I did a poll a while back asking if you guys would be interested in learning a little bit more about young me. The response was pretty high. You know, you guys really want to get to know me a little bit more. I contemplated this because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be this vulnerable with you guys, but I figured that it's important for you guys to know where my resilience comes from, where all this confidence comes from. It started way back when I was a young girl, so let's get right into it, guys. I was born in Toronto, Ontario, in the district of North York, right at the intersection of Jane and Finch, Driftwood Avenue to be exact, also known as Up Top, and I lived here until I was about 14 years old. And if you know anything about Driftwood, a lot of the houses were subsidized housing, which means the government pays for a portion of your rent. And I mean, of course, you gotta be a special kind of broke if the government is paying for part of your rent. And so last year I took my kids to go and see where I grew up because they've never been and they wanted to see where I grew up. So I took them to the exact location, the little old house that I grew up in. Learning to be resilient started when I was a kid. I've seen different things that your average kid would not see. Things like drug deals would happen right in front of my face. All I'd have to do is walk outside my door and there would be a drug deal happening right there. I know what it looks like for someone to die by violence. I know what it looks like for someone to die by the gun. I learned to be cautious at an early age. I mean, gunshots could go off at any given moment and you have to be quick on your feet and find the nearest shelter. I mean, I was a kid and so nothing really bothered me at the time, but when I look back, I think the thing that bothered me the most is the ignorance that went on. If you think about it, there was a lot of envy happening. There was a lot of hate happening that would cause contention. The repetition of gun violence, the repetition of fighting. And I mean, for a kid, that's a pretty messed up environment to grow up in. I don't want to sit here and say it was all bad. I mean, I had it pretty good. My needs were met in my own home. My mother provided for us and made sure we had the best of the best food, the best clothing. I had it pretty good compared to some of my schoolmates. There wasn't really any wants in that department. I can definitely say that if there was any needs that weren't being met, it would be more on the emotional level. I mean, my mom was a single mom. She did what she could to provide for us. She stayed quite busy. Our emotional needs weren't completely met. And that's the reality of it. It is what it is. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say that I did fear for my life. There was times where I was scared, you know, for the life of my friends or my family. I do know of people that have died by the gun, that have been shot to death. And so there were times where I was scared, you know, as a young girl walking home and there's just a group of guys that you're not sure who they are. You kind of have that fear of what could happen. But on the other hand, I will say that I did also feel protected. The mandem, as we called them in the hood, the mandem were there and they were very protective of us as well. They looked out for us. A lot of the time, they were older siblings of my schoolmates. And so we knew them. We still felt a sense of protection and they looked out for us. Some of the times they would even give us money. As little kids, they would just give us money to go to the candy store. We did have to work for that money. They would make us run races. The first one to win the race would get $20, or, you know, we would have to share it amongst the other kids around, but they were there for us and it was really nice knowing that they cared about us. Even though they were doing bad things around us, they still cared for us, and so that kind of gave us a sense of peace and protection. I'd say the hardest part of growing up in the hood is kind of the unknown. Like I said, you don't know what's gonna happen next. You don't know when violence is about to pop off. You don't know. You're just unsure a lot. Just the violence and crime at the time when I lived there as a kid, it was at an all-time high. So I'd say the hardest part is just being scared. I would say the best parts outrule the hard parts, because we had so much fun as kids, and I know some of my friends from back in the day can attest to this. We had so much fun. That's where my cousin Letitia used to live, and then my friend Tasha and Nadia, and I just lived right there, so you can imagine all the fun we would have hanging out together right on the same block. So come, I'll show you the community center where we used to hang out all the time. We had things like the community center, the Driftwood Community Center. We would hang out there on a daily basis. We would do things like join the step club. My mom put me in jazz dance. We would go there and watch the guys break dance. We would go there and watch performances, cultural performances. Stuff like, you know, we had a basketball court, and so everyone would hang out there, watch the guys play basketball. We had swimming pools. Like, we had a lot of fun as children. We rollerblade, we bike ride. Like, the fun was never ending. It's pretty much the hood. This is the hood. This is where we used to live. We loved it, and we had the best time here. I had the best childhood. It's great. We knew when we had to take our butts home. As soon as that street light went on, take your butt home before your mom whoop it. I think this is too where my love for Christ really started. And this is where my Christianity journey started, because there was a center called the Christian Center. I think it was like every Friday you could go there, and they just had like an open time for youth where you could just go. First, you have to make sure you go and worship and, you know, listen to a little bit of gospel, and then after that the fun began, where we could you know, play different games. We do different contests. They had outdoor activities. We ate food, and it was just a great time. That's where I really started to love the gospel and learn more about it, because I wasn't necessarily learning it in the home, but I learned it at the Christian Center. That's where my love for Christ started. It makes me happy. Also, we had things like block parties where, you know, someone was throwing a barbecue and literally the whole block's invited. Anyone could just come through, eat food. The music was loud all throughout the neighborhood, and I mean, that was just a regular thing for us. Someone's having a party, you go, you just enjoy your time with your friends and family. And that was something that happened very often, and we looked forward to stuff like that. It just was a great time for us to come together as a community and enjoy food, company. Another thing that I loved about growing up is it just felt like a community, and it felt like people were looking out for you. Even if you don't know them, they know of you, so they're looking out for you. It just felt like home. It felt like a community. Growing up as a kid in the hood, it could be a pretty messed up place to live, but I'm not gonna sit here and say my needs weren't met. We had what we need food wise, clothing wise. We actually had the best of the best in those departments. My dad wasn't in the picture, but I would go and see him every weekend. He was in my life. He was a part of my life. You know, for the most part, it was just my mom, and she did what she could to take care of us. We had a lot against us environment wise. We were dealt crappy cards, but we played them very well. Like I said at the beginning, this is definitely where my resilience began. There were times where I was bullied as a kid, just for stupid things like my skin tone, like, you know, being one of the darker kids. Like, you would get bullied for that. People would call me names. People would, you know, try to drag me for my skin tone. But you know what? I didn't let that bother me as much as a kid. I might have went home and reflected about it, but luckily I had that mentality and that state of mind to know that that had nothing to do with me and more so the person. So I didn't really let things like that bother me. And half the time it was guys that were doing that, and I'm pretty sure they just liked me and didn't know how to tell me. So so they chose to make fun of me instead. But I've seen some of my friends get bullied really badly, and they didn't take it very well. So I'm really grateful that I had that state of mind that helped me get through those times. I was also really lucky to have amazing teachers, ones that we looked up to. Shout out to Mr. Williams. He was my teacher in grade 6. He was my grade 6 teacher. I would even get mocked because my maiden name is Williams. All the kids would say, "Oh, Mr. Williams, that's your dad. Yeah, your dad's your teacher." I actually didn't mind it because he seriously was one of the best teachers. So shout out to you, Mr. Williams. You the bomb. All this to say that, you know, my story is very important to me. It is a part of me, and that's something that I can't erase. One thing that I will take from this is that it doesn't matter where I came from. It doesn't matter how I grew up. In all reality, in the grand scheme of things, it's where am I going now, right? We're always looking towards the future and also the present. We're trying to be better people now and just learn from our experiences. One thing I can say is that I will take what I learned as far as resilience and pass it along to my kids so that they're ready to take on the real world, and they're ready to learn how to build a strong state of mind. And that's one thing that I will for sure cherish about how I grew up, is the fact that I am a stronger person today. I'm unshakable. I have very high faith, and I'm not afraid of the unknown. That's just something that I'm really grateful for. I really hope that this resonated with you. And if you have any experiences that are similar, I would love for you guys to share. Like, how did you grow up? Was it similar to my experience, or was it different? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really grateful that you guys came out to listen to this. I'm glad you came out to listen. You see that little bell right here? I really want you guys to tap that bell to be notified when I post more videos. You're gonna want to see the next video. You're not gonna want to miss it, because I'm gonna go into detail about my high school experience, and honestly, that is a lot crazier than this video. Thank you guys so much for being a part of my internet home. Please subscribe. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one.